but being where you're supposed to be. And then I'm a big believer in storing up food and supplies and the other things. In fact, there's four big areas that I talk about when I write about this or I talk to an audience about it. And that's number one, food. Everyone's going to need food, and you're going to need a lot more than 3 months, which some of these prepping books tell you to get 3 months of food. That's not going to be nearly enough. But ultimately, what I tell people in terms of people say, Michael, how much food am I going to need? Well, my answer is you're going to need as much food for yourself, for your family, and for everyone that's going to come knocking on your door that's going to be depending upon you that hasn't been preparing. You're going to need enough food for the whole group for as long as you plan for all of you to stay alive. And I know that sounds rather like, rather blunt, but I'm that's the situation that we're facing ultimately down the road. So yeah, you're going to need a lot of food. The second major area that I talk to people about is water. Because food, you can last a while without food, but water, they say 3 days without water, people can go longer, but really, if you don't have water, you're not gonna make it very long. So, and people say, well, I'll just turn on the tap, but what if the water quits coming out of your tap, right? People need to have a plan for when the grid goes down. What are you going to do about water? Water is so important. That's an area that many preppers greatly underestimate. But water is absolutely critical. And then there's a fifth area, which is security. How are you going to defend yourself and your family and the things you stored up? And, what happens if someone with a gun comes to your door? What happens if an entire gang of 50 people come to your door? What are you going to do? So those are things to consider as well. So those are the five big areas generally that I encourage people to focus on in terms of physical preparation, Mike. Preparation is going to look different for every single person, depending on who they are, where they live, what their situation is. But there's some general principles and some general things that we all need to really think about.